Hello and welcome to the annual Debian Python BoF. If you're involved in Python and Debian, please ping us on IRC to get a Jitsi link to join the call. And there's a pretty big agenda in the pad. So yeah, edit, add things. We probably won't get through it all, but we can try. It looks like it's just the four. Oh, there we go. Hi, Alana. Should we do a quick round of introductions before we get started? I'll start and then nominate someone and we can continue around in a circle. Stefano Rivera, I do a bunch of Python, look after a bunch of Python modules. I took over the pip and virtual env stack recently because they've slowly been growing some weeds and we tried to get them in shape for Bullseye and fix up a bunch of issues with rendering them in some recent Ubuntu LTSs as well. I think things are in reasonable shape now. There's more about that later in the agenda. And yeah, also look after the PyPy interpreter. Nicolas, you want?
Yeah, so hi, my name is Nicolas Dandrimont, OLASD. I look after some packages, not many. Yeah, I'm mostly lurking in the team. Ilana, you want to go next?
Sure, why not? Alana Hashman. I'm mostly involved with the closure team in Debian, as well as the technical committee, but sometimes I get sucked into Python things, so here I am. Should I pass the potato to someone? Zigo.
Okay, I happen to be the person doing the most Python module maintenance because I maintain OpenStack, so I maintain probably more than 400 Python modules. But I'm doing only that. I don't do core Python complicated stuff like the interpreter like Matthias would do or pip like Stefano does. Okay, who's next? Gagas, you want to go? Introduce yourself.
You hear me? You see me? I don't know.
Yeah, it all works.
Okay, sorry, I don't have a headset, so sound is terrible. I'm Gagas. I started to contribute to Python Team a year ago, something. So yeah, first DebConf for me. So let me pick a headset while you continue to present yourselves.
I guess Emmanuel would be next.
Okay. Hi, hello. My name is Emmanuel. Sorry for my English, it's terrible. I contributed to Debian 3 years ago, and currently I'm working in Poetry package. Thank you. Who's the next?
Jonathan, do we need to tell who you are?
Hello, I'm Jonathan. I maintain a few Python packages, and now and again I sponsor some packages when I have some time.
Oh, I guess I forgot to tell people why I do Python things if they don't know anything about me, which is that I used to maintain Audit Wheel, which is the tool used to package Python binaries when they have external dependencies that are non-Python, such as C, Fortran, the works. So I don't do that anymore. I no longer maintain that package, but I used to, and I'm still, I think, a committer in the Python packaging authority.
All right. Kyle, should we include you as well, or are you behind the scenes as a video person?
Oh, no, you can include me, I guess. Yeah, my name's Kyle. I maintain a couple of the Python applications, not really any modules. But yeah, pretty much just lurking in the team.
Okay, thanks everyone. So current state of Python and Debian. I got some notes from Matthias, who can't make it to the BoF today. 3.9 is the current default. We're expecting 3.10 to go stable upstream in October, and then become available as a supported release in unstable, and then we can push it as default as fast as we can get there, basically. The usual process is we make the new release a supported release, rebuild everything that needs to be rebuilt against a new release. That's all the C extensions and that kind of thing. File many RC bugs, do a test rebuild to find all the test suites that are failing, and fix all the critical stuff before we make it the new version, the default release. That's the easy stuff that's happening on the interpreter side. Then there's also some more messy political stuff. There's been some long-running grumpiness between upstream Python and Debian, Python things and Debian. I think you can kind of describe it as the upstream's point of view is, some of the upstream's people's point of view is that Debian people like patching things and making them different and broken. And that the best way to use Python on Debian is to get Python from upstream, build it from source, and completely...
Stefano, there is a request from IRC to increase the gain of your microphone.
It's already as high as it'll go there. I'll need to rejig things to get it any higher. Oh, no, it's gone down again. That's why. How's that?
That's
Much
better.
Okay. How much of that do I need to cover again?
Probably none of it, but now you're better.
Excellent. So yeah, some grumpiness there. We've been trying to mend it. One of the ways, one of the things we did to help make upstream a little bit happier was to add the Python 3-full package, which installs the entire standard library, including things that we don't consider an end user running Python applications to need. And let me just send a link to... So yeah, that's... I don't know if there's anything more we need to cover about that. I would say at a high level, we're also a little bit behind on Python packaging upstream. The PEP 517 stuff we just aren't ready for yet. Poetry's on the way to being packaged, but in general, for other PEP 517 things, we just don't have a tool chain to build and install them yet. If you aren't aware of PEP 517 stuff, the big difference is it doesn't define a mechanism to install to a system. It defines a mechanism for building wheels. So we need some tooling. We need to change PyBuild to invoke the standard PEP 517 way of building a package. Build a wheel, and then take this wheel and turn it into something that's installed in userlib Python 3. Just packages.
What's the point of doing things this way?
This is the way that upstream is going. More and more modules won't have a setup.py. They will have a pyproject.toml that defines PEP 517 metadata. And they might build with tools that aren't setup tools.
Oh, I saw it. I think I saw it once.
Yeah.
So that's just a setup.cfg, right?
Setup.cfg is probably still setup tools. But there are other build tools. You don't have to build with setup tools. So we're going to start seeing more and more things built with other tools entirely. Is there anything else we want to cover on the state of Python? Okay, anything about the Debian team, the Debian Python team? Last year we were talking about merging the two teams into one, which we've done. There's just a single Python team rather than separate packages and modules. I would say in general, the team has lots of packages in it that need maintenance, that have been added by someone and are now being largely neglected. The team's sort of missing people doing large-scale cross-team maintenance.
So I think we've given janitor permissions to commit directly to Python Team. Has anyone looked at Janmer's automatic upstream version packaging stuff and how much of that applies to the Python Team packages? Because I think most of our packages are fairly trivial and could be updated that way.
I can imagine it working well for them, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a way to have some packages out of that? Because I know a few that would need manual assistance. Like I wouldn't like to have eventlet being uploaded with whatever new version if the other package using it aren't ready, for example.
I'm not talking about uploading. I'm only talking about actually doing the update work and then having packages ready for integration testing. And then validating manually that these packages are ready to be uploaded. But just cutting all the having to fetch new upstreams and doing the grunt work of updating packages, because this is most of it can be automated, I assume.
At least Yelmer seems to be trying to automate as much of package maintenance as he possibly can, and I think we all think this is a great thing to do. The other thing that I can think of that's been proposed for the team is to generally push away from using the Python package index as a source for our tarballs to Git sources. I don't know if we want to make a decision on that. At the moment, it seems like people do it on a per package basis. If you want the test suite and the upstream isn't providing it, which is pretty common, then you go to GitHub. But PyPI is a pretty good place to look for, to have the watch file monitor for new upstream releases, because it's the canonical place to do that.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like these two things are disconnected. It's not because you are using a watch file that watches for PyPI that you're not using the Git upstream.
Right. Although in practice, at least in our team, we use PyPI as the default upstream. And we have a team policy of not using Git sources as upstream unless you have a good reason to, if I remember correctly. Sorry, not using the Git repo as upstream. Tarballs from GitHub, perfectly normal.
That's kind of the same, in fact.
Yes. So it's about Git usage, but yes.
Was that influenced at all by the fact that historically a lot of Python sources weren't necessarily stored in Git? They might have been using Mercurial or another version control system. I don't know how common that is now, but
yeah, I think it was just inertia. The policy of not using Git sources at the time was probably because it was simpler for us to work with tarballs, and we'd been working with tarballs on Subversion. We didn't want to turn the world upside down when we moved to Git.
We could have made the decision in Portland in 2014.
We could have. So the consensus I'm getting here is, yes, get your tarballs from GitHub. Do we want to change team policy to make that the recommendation?
Do we have numbers on how many packages come from PyPI and don't have tests or something like that, and that could drive a policy decision? Or should we collect these numbers and do that before deciding on the policy change?
It seems like that might be quite a bit of work to collect those numbers.
Yeah, does it matter? Like, will it influence us moving to database sources?
Yeah, it's probably not actually an issue to change the recommendation right now. We can just do it.
Yeah, if someone wants to take an action to do that. Or we leave it hanging and we can move on.
We have a new person to introduce. Maybe take a quick break to do that. Hi, Diane.
Hello. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Diane. I've used Debian for a long time. I really like Python and got involved with the Python team because we have been doing a lot, or because I was really into doing Python. And I also use Python for doing bioinformatics work at my job at Caltech.
Thank you. Welcome. The next item on the agenda was a suggestion from Doko, which is that we don't need to have -dbg binary packages for most Python modules anymore. The upstream ABI has changed. PyDebug builds of CPython don't mean an ABI change for modules anymore. They'll be compatible across both versions of the interpreter. So we can start removing -dbg modules.
That's cool. Today I learned.
Yeah, so this probably means that somebody needs to set up a tracker or something to help.
Should we get Poyo to add a Lintian check for that?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Because he's done a lot of Python adjacent contributions to Lintian. So yeah. I guess it would be fairly easy to add that. So yeah.
It probably also needs a policy change to remove the section from policy. And in general, packages will probably have to have manual migration to dbgsim packages that will be taking over the dbgsims that we normally shipped in these modules, in these binary packages as well.
Just a quick question for the notes. We now have, I think, 3 actions. Did we have a name attached to who's going to update the policy for moving to Git sources? And then who wants to help with the tracker for package removal and adding the Lintian warning?
Are you volunteering?
Absolutely not. I don't even have time to deal with my own packages. I just want to make sure we have a name in the notes. Otherwise, it's giant question mark.
Yeah, I can look at the policy change.
And if we fail to find volunteers for any actions in this call, we can also just put it in the mail to Debian Python that we think this should be done and no one has volunteered. And it can go and die there.
Yeah, that's fine for me.
Next up in the agenda is 2.7 removal. So we've basically removed Python 2.7. Yes and no. So the Python 2.7 binary is still there in the archive. It's probably still being used by lots of people. I would hate to know how many. It's still in testing.
We could probably get guesses in terms of how many people are still using it if you ask PyPI very nicely. They often they have stats on who's using 2.7 and what the user agents are. So
right, and that's probably published somewhere.
Yeah, maybe I can ask someone.
Yeah. The next steps for us are to remove the Python-is-Python2 package that makes your user bin Python point to Python 2.7. That's not going to be in Debian and Bookworm. The only thing I can think of that still currently requires 2.7 is PyPy, because the RPython toolchain is written in Python 2.7. There is a slow effort upstream to port it to 3, but it's slow, and it took them many years to decide that they even were going to bother doing that.
Will it take more than 2 years?
Probably, because they don't seem to be in a hurry. So the options from I'm quite comfortable with the 2.7 binary being removed. If it is removed, then I will build PyPy using PyPy and just have to manually bootstrap it from my own builds of Python 2.7. It's a pain on new architectures, but it works. Alternatively, I might throw the entire Python 2.7 source tree in the PyPy source package and have it build CPython and then PyPy.
Yeah, that's what I was about to suggest.
Yeah, that's probably faster, to be honest. So there's options there. I'm not going to move forward on that until someone pushes me, because things work just fine from my point of view as they are. But the related question here is, how long do we want to keep 2.7 alive for our users? Like, at the moment, we have a working pip and virtual env set up for 2.7. If someone really wants to run 2.7, they can.
This is in Bookworm.
This is currently in Bookworm, yes.
Maybe let's not include a 2.7 in Bookworm.
Yeah, so currently I'm blocked from updating to the latest version of pip because that drops support for 2.7. As soon as I do that, then we lose virtual env support on 2.7.
I think that's just fine.
Or we use the upstream wheels for pip.
I'd say go ahead.
All right.
So Stefano, there was already questions about security support for Python 2.7 in Bullseye. If it stays around another cycle, what happens with security support?
Absolutely.
It's probably going to get crazy. So
I'm sure the security team would love it to go.
That's probably another good and big reason for it to go in Bookworm.
Yeah. But the reality is
ELTS.
people are still using it.
Yeah, Bullseye will stay forever.
Isn't that what putting old versions into containers is for?
I think that's a good argument. Yes.
There is in fact a docker.io package.
So because you throw everything in a Docker container, then it becomes safe immediately, right?
Exactly. That's exactly what I was saying.
Okay, so I think the consensus here is we do not want to keep a virtual env stack for 2.7. That's fine with me.
Can we just drop all of 2.7, therefore transitively also dropping the virtual env stack?
You can. In the process, you will take out PyPy 3.
Take the sources in your PyPy package. If you think that's not too much work, then why not? How much work that is?
So I'd probably still keep a PyPy 2.7 binary because it is useful to build with the JIT. I could consider dropping the PyPy 2.7 as well.
Yeah, when I say Python, I mean CPython, not necessarily PyPy, although I don't know what the status of PyPy 2.7 support is either.
It's supported by upstream, but the standard library part isn't really. Like, if security holes are found and they are considered to be critical, maybe someone will look at it, maybe. But I think you'll be told you probably don't want to be using 2.7 in a user-facing production environment. Or untrusted data-facing environment. Are we done with pip? Well, 2.7 removal. Pip and Debian. I think, so currently I'm the only person actively maintaining pip. I could use more people helping out with that if anyone wants to. Scott K was largely doing it before I did, but he's stepped back from a lot of Debian and Ubuntu things in the last year or two. So I just had to pick it up. There's a question for us as a project here, which is pip has a bunch of vendored dependencies, which we de-vendored. We decided that following Debian policies. We don't like vended libraries. We'd like to have a single version of each one of these libraries in the archive. And so we implement, with Upstream's help, we implemented a mechanism to devendor all these libraries in Debian. And that's why we've got the Python pip WHL package that contains, sorry, is it Python 3? Why can't I? It contains dirt bike built wheels of a bunch of Python libraries in the archive that lets us use a single source to provide all of these vendor dependencies for pip. Upstream implemented this, but they're not exactly, they don't like it. They prefer not to have to support it. They have no desire to support it. And anytime anything breaks in it, fingers get pointed at us.
What is the tangible benefit to end users of devendoring these dependencies?
Absolutely none.
That may have been a little bit of a leading question.
I'd say there's an argument here that there's a benefit in terms of single security updates to, say, requests can be done in the requests package. But the way the devendoring is actually implemented, you then have to go and do a sourceful upload of the pip package to do a rebuild of the wheel. So we end up with what Elasti said.
So effectively the same situation. In that case, I would argue I don't see any benefit for devendoring. I don't actually think it's making anybody's lives easier. It's certainly not making like the maintainers' lives easier, and that, you know, we have limited resources on the team already. So, and it makes Upstream mad, which is not great.
Yeah, it's straining relations with the Upstream. Okay, so we can.
Can the wheels be built from source?
So they are currently all built from source. That's the mechanism that we use. Is we install the binary packages that contain all of these Python libraries, and then we have a tool called DirtBike that extracts the library from userlib Python 3 and builds a wheel from it.
Okay, because I think as long as the vendored branches can be built from source, I think that's the bright line that can't be crossed for Debian. Like, you have to be able to build it from build the thing that you're shipping has to have been built from a source.
Right. Now we won't be able. The thing we'll be shipping, if we switch to a vendored approach like Upstream follows for pip, the source tree will contain the source of all of these Python libraries. They're all pure Python libraries. So,
which libraries are we talking about?
It's everything. If you do a
request, setup tools, and then a few of their transitive dependencies, I assume. I think there's 6 or 7 packages.
Oh, it's quite a few. If you run this command that I just put as agenda item 531, you will see.
But like vendoring request is not a good idea.
But
there's a lot of stuff vendored in there. Like certify is also in there. Here, I can share the link in the notes. 1 second.
Isn't there a way to tell Upstream not to do that?
No, it's pretty common practice for a lot of these packages.
Yes, but like
I mean, as long as they're full source, I don't really see what the issue is.
Pip is in a special position here because it's a bootstrap thing.
Yeah.
When you create a virtual env, you need pip in it so you can install stuff.
Yeah, for something like pip, I would agree. It's like if request is vendored, then why don't they make it a standard library? And then no discussion.
Because the general feeling in because they need a bunch of stuff that isn't in the standard library. Like people describe standard libraries where modules go to die.
Well, I mean, it's the same question, you know, why isn't cryptography in the standard library? There are a bunch of reasons, but one of which is it's very, very painful for like security reasons to pair that with the standard library versioning. You're now stuck on the same release schedule and, you know, same security processes and so on and so forth. A lot of these things that are spun out from core need to be more agile than that.
Should we open a conversation with the security team about that? Re-vendoring of pip dependencies. Seeing
I think that's a sensible thing to do. Yeah.
what their opinion is. I don't remember a lot of security updates of Python modules in general.
No, there have
happening
been
in Debian stable. So
there have been some relatively recently, but not many.
So I don't think it's going to be a huge burden to have to update pip if one of these dependencies gets a security issue that's.
And in practice, you have to do that anyway because you've got to do the sourceful upload to trigger the build.
Yeah.
Action me for that. So if I remember correctly from how we ended up in this situation, we looked at the vendoring in pip and we said, we should de-vendor this if we really can. And we figured out a way to do it, so we did it. And it's only over the years since then that you can see what the impact of that has been. If pip had been meticulously maintained by a maintainer who had enough time to stay on top of all of these bugs, then it wouldn't have been a problem. But the maintainership's been variable over the years, and there've just been a lot of bugs.
I think it's similar with pip as it is with a lot of packages that do this sort of vendoring of dependencies thing, where the upstream project has significantly more resources than Debian does, and they're staying on top of all of these security things. So like as long as we're watching the upstream repo, we will get the fixes. Whereas the person in Debian, if we create a bunch of extra work for ourselves, we're just making it a lot more work for a project that's already kind of understaffed. And so for the reason I asked the question of how does this benefit users is if we're putting in all this work, like I would at least like to see that have some tangible benefit to Debian users. If not, I think we're just kind of doing a bunch of work for ultimately nothing.
Yeah. Let's move on from pip then. Pip 517. This just feels like somewhere that we're going to need to do some work on tooling. It would have been nice to have Piotr in the call for this, but I don't know how actively he's involved in DH Python maintenance at the moment. It seems like someone is going to need to find some time to figure out how we're going to handle pip 517 modules and then do some work on tooling. I don't know if we're going to get anywhere further in this discussion than to say that and move on unless someone's jumping up and down to volunteer. Okay, so noted.
Sorry, I can help you with that maybe.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, as soon as we get poetry in, we get to start seeing
yes.
what poetry builds look like.
Yeah. Maybe I will ask for help for everyone in channels, but I would like to work in this.
Maybe for the folks who are watching on the stream who don't know what poetry is, could we explain?
Poetry is one of the pip 517 build tools, I think.
That is supposed to replace setup tools, right?
Yes. So, yes, it's something like
when he's saying yes, the other is saying no with the head.
Yeah.
Because
see, I was confusing.
I mean, setup tools were supposed to displace these two tips, and then we're in the current situation. So, stuff that's going to replace stuff in Python is just not happening in practice.
I think that it's more like a pip, it could be. Yeah.
What I mean is that we're going to live with setup tools forever, I assume.
And we live with, just like we've lived with distutils forever, although it's going soon, apparently.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Same.
The other things I'd noted here on the agenda were just some upstream things to be aware of. So this is partly related to what we were just talking about, the death of distutils. Generally, upstream PyPA has been trying to centralize where the sysconfig install layouts are stored and trying to avoid distros patching them, if I remember correctly. There's a couple of Python issues there that we should probably keep an eye on. I haven't read through these yet. But in Debian, we do patch system install schemes in CPython and PyPy.
Yeah, I'm reading through the upstream issue, and there's a quote, even if we grant that Debian is too intrusive in its patching of distutils, ... So I'm not up to date on whatever is going on there.
Yeah, thank you for your comments, Leaf. Describing.
For those not on the Etherpad, Leaf says, PEP517 creates an interface that allows many competitors to set up tools to coexist and for pip to work well with all of them. Poetry is one of the competitors, Flit is another.
Oh, nice. So now instead of one system, we will have many to deal with. That makes the distro so easier for us, right?
As you know, the philosophy in Python is there's more than one way to do it. Wait.
The idea here is that there's a standard interface to call them, so it shouldn't matter which thing is being used, but we all know that abstractions leak, and these are probably going to leak like sieves.
As if we'd be forced to use pip, right? Like, because it's famous that it solves dependency tree so easily, right?
So there is a little project upstream called install, if I remember right, that takes the wheel and installs it. But before that was created, the recommendation was going to be that we would first do a build with PEP517 and then have to install the thing with pip. But hopefully we've avoided that.
Taking a look at the Etherpad, we had a couple of audience questions. One looks like it was answered, but the other is probably a reasonable question for the general video. What kinds of skills are expected to join or be part of the Python team in Debian?
And so, yeah, I've answered that the basic skill that you'll want is being able to read Python, at least to some extent. You don't need very heavy Debian packaging skills because most of the Python packages are fairly simple. So yeah, just please join us. Send us a message on the mailing list telling us what you'd like to package and showing us what you've done so far, and we can join, welcome you in the team.
For people who are not familiar where the mailing list or the IRC channels or that other information might be, would you mind putting that in the Etherpad?
Yes, I will.
And to be clear about what the Python team is doing, we're primarily packaging applications that are written in Python and the Python modules that are needed to support them. But we also package modules that are useful in our own lives that we want to be able to install on a system without virtual envs. I think that's about everything we do. And there are some huge systems like Openstack, which is why Zigo maintains so many Python packages. Openstack is an octopus of Python.
Yeah, and some of these OpenStack packages live in the team, and some aren't, mainly because I prefer not to deal with upstream tarbles. And I don't use PyPy either. Not PyPy, DH. Yeah. DH Python. By the way, many of the packages I continue to maintain inside the OpenStack team aren't used by OpenStack anymore. I just do it because they were there, and then I don't want to have a regression. Any suggestion of what I should do with them?
Do you know if they are dependent by other packages on OpenStack?
It'd be hard to make a survey, but I guess some are, some not.
I would say if there's nothing that's depending on it, feel free to remove it. If there are things that are depending on it, move it over to the Python team or wherever that other. Ask the maintainer of the thing that depends on it if they're willing to take it on, and maybe move it to the Python team in the process if that makes sense. Are we done? Should we call it 5 minutes early?
No, I want to see more of the cat. I only caught like the tail.
One cat. He's been looking at you before he goes back to being a cat.
Hi.
Oh, this is
Look at that.
delightful.
Should we be uploading cat pictures to the there's some
Loopy?
Yes.
I think this cat deserves to be on the group photo.
I actually think we should have a live webcam on the cats for Loopy.
I have not figured out how to set up my Pine camera to support live streaming from the cats.
Sounds like a great weekend project.
Also, thanks for putting together this BoF. It was really well planned. I liked it.
Yeah, thanks so much for the agenda, Stefano. It was awesome, and we covered a lot of stuff. I don't know if there's more we need to cover, but
I was surprised we got to the end. Yeah.
maybe it's just because we decided to not get caught in the weeds.
That helps.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.